In this episode,
nothing will replace the expertise of boots on the ground.
Hello, I'm feeling poorly today.
It's also having that bit of love throughout.
I wouldn't say excited, no.
Sometimes these machines just will not switch on in heating in August.
That comes at a cost.
You can tell whether someone's undone the screws or not, or moved anything apart or cleaned it.
And I genuinely think we're about the middle-ish.
hi and welcome to another episode of the award-winning Homeowners Q&A Podcast. I'm your host Mars, and today we're diving into a topic that affects every heat pump owner sooner or later, the future of heat pump servicing and maintenance. We've got a brilliant panel lined up for you today to share their knowledge and experience. Joining me are Tom Owen from Panasonic, Nigel from Energy Solutions, Michael Cosham from DG Climate Control, and Simon Basden from AAC Group. Welcome, everybody. Before we get started, we'd like to thank our sponsor Panasonic for supporting this episode of the Homeowners Q&A Podcast. Panasonic has been at the forefront of renewable heating innovation for decades, and their Aquaria range of air source heat pumps is a great example of that commitment. Designed for efficiency, performance, and comfort, the Aquaria line is built to meet the diverse needs of UK homes, whether you're retrofitting an older property or designing a new, low-energy build from scratch. Panasonic continues to push boundaries in this space, helping homeowners transition to cleaner, more sustainable heating with smart, future-ready technology. A huge thank you to the Panasonic team for making this conversation possible. So I think I'm going to start today's episode a little bit differently to the other ones in that when it comes to maintenance and servicing, I'm just going to relate our story just very, very briefly. So our heat pump only came with a 3-year warranty, and it was in the second year that the manufacturer and the installers, who are actually the same company, told us that in order for us to maintain our warranty on our heat pump, we needed to get it serviced annually. It was actually a very strange experience in that the guy that commissioned the system was also the guy that was doing the maintenance. I have had run-ins with him in the past. He is quite an arrogant individual, so it was very difficult to relate and actually talk to him while he was here. So as part of the actual service, he was here for about 30 minutes. I do not think that the cover came off the heat pump. There was a little bit of tip-tapping at the actual control panel, and we paid £250 for the privilege. So Nigel, do you want to get us going? Because you've just written a chapter for our new book, The Ultimate Guide to Heat Pumps, on this very, very subject. When somebody actually does get an engineer to come to their property to do the actual maintenance and servicing of their heat pump, what should that look like?
It's got to look like a journey. And I think the start of that journey is when you initially contact that company and they quote you. That quotation should include a detailed list of everything that's being checked. From my point of view, when my guys are out doing the servicing, if it's a brand new version install done by a very good contractor, then yeah, you're just looking over the install with a mind that you've got to know what isn't there as much as you're checking what is there.
So Simon, in the absence of these guidelines for actual servicing, when you guys go to service and maintain a heat pump for a customer, what is it that you guys are typically looking to do? And for a homeowner that's actually watching this episode and they get someone that actually does come to their home, what should they be expecting from that engineer?
So the first thing we tend to do is explain to the customer when we arrive what it is we're going to do. So we actually reassure them the other way. Don't worry, we're pulling this thing to pieces. It does need it because we want to check the internal components. We do want to get in your airing cupboard and so on and so forth. We even want to get in the loft if the pipework goes through the loft. We just want to check that nothing's falling down, nothing's falling off. Once we know the client and we know that system and we know how that's installed, or if we installed it, then we can abbreviate certain elements. You wouldn't have to get in the loft every time just to inspect the insulation. But what we try to do is sell value for money in the sense of we're checking the whole install, whether it needs it or not. Even if it's just casting an eye on the bits that everyone else wouldn't bother, I want to take a picture, and our engineers love a picture. I've drummed it into them for the last 5 or 6 years. So we would go isolation, turn off, check electrical connections, removing covers, cleaning coils, checking physical connections. If we have to pull apart the insulation to check connections, we only look for visual leaks. We don't start destroying things to then patch them back up. So that would be a caveat there. We're checking flow rates. We're checking that it turns on and off. We're checking that it heats. What's very difficult, so we found a way around with EcoDan. Sometimes these machines just will not switch on in heating in August. We had one last week. Some brands have a test mode. Others have a way you can ignore it. Some you can put onto so we'll even reprogram it to run I had an eco dam running at 64 degrees C on R32 the other day. I did not know it could do it. It was August because we wanted to prove that the radiators were balanced in the middle of a service. So because the customer was interested. So the way we do it is we sell you time. We say 2 hours of service. I know other companies do it quicker. We say 2 hours of service and you're paying 2 hours of hourly rate. That's how we price it. I think we're 150 plus VAT, which is 180 or something like that. I had to get used to being non-commercial, so we have to obviously include the VAT for homeowners. For that, you get 2 solid hours and within a radius of half-hour drive. Yeah, so it's a fixed rate. We win some, we lose some. Some are a lot are on our doorstep. And in that 2 hours, if an hour and a half and it's a small install, and it's all great, we'll spend the last half an hour just chatting to the customer, making sure they're okay, they understand how it works. If it's a really big system and we push for a bit of time, then we would just make sure that everything's working perfectly fine and we'll check as far as we can. And then what we do, and we will start doing this more, and I express once we know the customer and we know the kit to the point where my engineers, they'll go, oh, Mrs. Jones, yeah, we know that one. That's the Dakin or that's the Eco done. We then, for every service, you can spend longer on a different part. And we often send back the same engineers, although I haven't got lots and lots of engineers, so that's very easy at the moment. I think, first of all, we're selling time. What you're buying is expertise. And what we're trying to do is offer preventative maintenance. It's not servicing. You service a car. We're doing a yearly, and we're looking for anything that might go wrong, even if it hasn't gone wrong. And the idea is to uphold a warranty, which most I don't know any manufacturers that don't insist on a service or maintenance to keep the warranty. So time, that's what we're offering, and they're the things we check. And whatever we can within that time was reasonable.
Michael, where do you stand on it?
We actually have a fixed charge throughout the country, but we're obviously not based near everybody. So some we lose on, and others we do okay on. So it's not a money maker for us. It's more of a service. We list it as an annual routine inspection because it's not necessarily a service, as Simon was saying. We mainly focus on the heat pump because that's our background. Most people who service heat pumps don't even look to see where it is, which is what we found. And there was one recently, we're a pro partner for Panasonic, and we went on a warranty call. It was subbed out to us. And he said, I only had it serviced 3 weeks ago by this company that gave us the job to go and find a further issue that the service hadn't covered. The unit was covered with outside. They had some big rocks covering up to make it look a bit nicer than the heat pump, like big stones, shall I say. So it's more like a rockery. It had pots on the top of it, to the side of it. It's clearly they're trying to hide it. And whoever went to do the service, you can tell whether someone's undone the screws or not, or moved anything apart or cleaned it. And they hadn't even touched it. The guy was with us all the time. Oh, I was actually on site. He was with me all the time. He said, yeah, the guy didn't come out here. He just did the filter inside, water pressure, and just had a look around where the cylinder was in the plant room or utility room, which is what we do as well. But our focus is the heat pump. If a heat pump needs servicing, you don't go inside, you go to the heat pump. Then you follow on with those other bits. That is quite typical of the jobs we come across where someone says, oh, I've had it serviced, or it was serviced last year. And I said, I can tell you from 30 odd years experience, that hasn't even been touched since it was put in. You only have to look at the heat exchanger, which in my view is the main thing you would do on any inspection or service. You clean that heat exchanger. If that isn't clean, it can't do its job at all. That's the first thing. Everything else is an add-on. And you often see that they're not clean. They're filthy dirty. They've got leaves on them, twigs between the fins, and they're just often a mess because they're ground level. We have a low pressure washer, a portable thing, and we give them a proper clean so they come out as good as new. And it's not about cleaning the casing. We do that as well, but some people just clean the casing. All that. We check it for refrigerant leaks as well. They do leak. It's rare, but they do leak. We check the internals in the heat pump itself. So we do everything that Panasonic, and I think it's Samsung, have also got a list of things you do on an annual routine inspection, shall we say. And we follow that list and we do everything that's on it.
So, Tom, from a manufacturer's perspective, do you guys have a checklist? And I'm glad that Michael actually touched on the heat exchanger, because that was going to be one of my questions, is that should that be mandatory for every single service? And is that something that Panasonic actually requests and requires from their installers?
It's generally the usual sort of stuff that Michael's mentioned. So it's check the heat exchanger, checking obviously the beginning of the wet side of the system. So things like filters, half the battle is moving to that water side, and checking sort of the system element of it as well, because, you know, the refrigerant side is great. And, you know, when was the last time sort of your fridge broke down? They generally don't. It's sort of the water side that sort of can sometimes cause those later on issues, and that can come down to installation and commissioning as well. So it's obviously getting the main heat pump checks, but for me as well, I think it's as important to start looking at, once you go into your cylinder cupboard, the state of the system itself, how it's been designed from the beginning.
Let's say, for example, they have got a Panasonic heat pump and they are due for a service. Can they, or should they, potentially call Panasonic's office in advance of and actually get a checklist from them, just to make sure that the guy that actually does come through is in fact going to do that? Because they might not necessarily be a kind of Panasonic pro. They might just be, you know, a local kind of heat pump specialist that comes through to do that. Is it advisable that people phone in advance and just get a rough list of what should be done if they are completely clueless as to what a good service and maintenance package actually looks like?
Our technical department sort of are pretty open when it comes to, you know, the correct information to get the right job done. And a lot of people sort of contact us and in regards to service, and we have our own service partners that, you know, tend to end up doing the bulk of that. Those partnerships are important. If sort of another business gets in touch with us and they're wanting that information, you know, that information is readily available. It's not sort of secret.
Thinking about heat pumps? Then you need the ultimate guide to heat pumps, our latest book for homeowners. With insights from over 35 industry experts who have a combined experience of over 600 years, they're here to answer every question you have and guide you every step of the way. This book will be the best money you'll ever spend on your heating. Pre-order your copy today and take control of your heat pump with absolute confidence. Link in the description. So Simon, you're quite active on our forums at Renewable Heating Hub, so thanks for being so active. One of the biggest peeves that I tend to find is that when it comes to servicing is the price point. So you mentioned, you know, people actually buying your time. So I think you mentioned you guys are 180 plus VAT, which actually seems to be quite a reasonable amount in terms of some of the figures we've seen down south. We've seen people charging 450, 500 pounds for an actual visit. But equally so on the other side, you tend to find guys that are charging like 70 or 80 pounds. What is that sweet spot? I mean, you've just mentioned that it's time. So a good engineer obviously charges X amount. So, you know, is that kind of what you should be looking at?
Construction rates generally are £250 to £400 a day. If you work that out in hours, it's roughly £60 to £90 an hour. That's your variation. Your 400s, obviously, they're charging premium. Our rate, we're kind of lower middle. There are cheaper than us. And I've got lots of friends and colleagues that work with us that are two men, operate from their bedroom, and they're excellent engineers, but they got no overhead. We've got £500,000 overhead minimum before I do a day's work. What you're paying for is level of skill, structure, management structure, resources, and so on and so forth. In my opinion, if you're paying less than, everyone will love this now, if you're paying less than 2 hours work, so say £100 plus VAT, I think it's too cheap. But I think if you can find a really good small company, you're probably getting a good deal. And if you're paying, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, if you're paying more than 250 to 300, then I'd say you're paying premium. But I don't see why there wouldn't be other companies, maybe even small enough, that might be more expensive. That's just their structure. And I'll be honest, Mars, that's their right. You have a choice as a homeowner not to use them, and they have a choice. They have a choice to charge what they feel is appropriate. All I would ask for as a homeowner, because I'm a homeowner too, and a heat pump owner, and on it goes. If I wanted to pay 300 instead of 200, just please give me £300 worth of work and knowledge. Look after my machine. There's no guarantees it won't ever break down after we've serviced it. We do get it 3 months later, something goes wrong. If something in the install dislodges, and we pick up a lot of other installs where they get installed and no one wants to service them. And we're happy to take that, but we take on a bit of risk with that. And we may do the maintenance and it's all fine on Tuesday, middle of May. And in, I don't know, November, when the machine really kicks in, because we can't do all the maintenances in the winter. We can't do any in the winter, really. Then what happens is we may take responsibility for that. So that's the swings and roundabouts thing. But we do everything we can to check thoroughly. Or we'll say to the customer, look, we've got to be fair. We can't guarantee everything on the system. We're doing everything we can. I think 100 to 300. So, and then gladly I'm right in the middle. And I genuinely think we're about the middle-ish.
Nigel, I'm going to put you on the spot. Are you cheaper than Simon?
We're a little bit more than that. From my point of view, I think we need to get away from the discussion about price. We are competent engineers. You've all said all of that. Simon, you've got £500,000 worth of overheads. We've all got our G3s. Some of us are F-gas. Some of us are time-served, plumbing and heating engineers, time-served electricians. That comes at a cost. And it really does annoy me that people are sort of saying that, well, I've got to justify my time. And if you get divorced or you need to buy a house, you don't turn around to the conveyancer or the solicitor and say, oh, how much is your hourly rate? Because you appreciate, you value their knowledge and their expertise. We're the same. We always try and move the conversation to is we answer the phone. You're not calling a mobile number that might or might not get answered. You're emailing a professional email address. You're getting a professional looking quotation that's detailing everything that we're doing. We're sending you redacted examples of our service report. We're telling you that we're listed with Panasonic as a service engineer. We're listed with Mitsubishi. We're listed.
The only thing I'll say there, Nigel, is that a lot of homeowners have been burned. And I think that they're not so much questioning the rates. They are more questioning, Nigel is charging me, let's say, £200 to come and to do this actual maintenance. Is he going to be here for 20 minutes? Is he going to be here for 2 hours and actually do a thorough job? I think that's where a lot of the homeowners kind of questions come from. It's not so much the price, because if somebody charged them £500 and they can't afford that, then, that conversation's closed. But if they're willing to spend £200 for that actual service, they just want to make sure that the guy that actually does come through is going to be competent and is actually going to do a thorough job, kind of what they're paying for.
If you're phoning up a guy out of the Yellow Pages, but it's not the Yellow Pages anymore, off of Google, and he's basically saying, yeah, I'll be there Tuesday. There is no quote. There is no, well, this is what I'm going to do for my 200 quid. I know it's subjective. I know it is.
Let me flip that around then, Nigel. So I call you and you say you're going to come out for £200, and I'm like, yeah, fantastic. That sounds good. And that's in budget. That's what I budgeted for this. And then you arrive and then you're gone within inside 20 minutes. You kind of just, you had a look, you went to the control panel and you left. Where does that leave the homeowner in terms of trying to figure out, well, I've paid something that I thought was going to be good. Is it a sensible thing for the homeowner to then ask on the phone saying, what will you do? Do you feel that that's too much of an invasion in terms of what you would potentially offer them as that service?
I think if anyone was around there for 10 minutes, it would be an insult. Every inquiry we get for a service, we're having a conversation with the person. We're sending them a detailed quotation. We're sending them a sample redacted report. But you won't get away from people buying on price. That's the harsh reality.
Tom, from Panasonic's perspective, do you guys have an approved list of engineers nationally? So if somebody does have, for example, a Panasonic heat pump and they're struggling to find somebody good locally, is there a list that they can actually draw on that will pretty much, I think, guarantee them a reasonably good service?
Yeah, well, we have our sort of service partners. I think it's currently at sort of 15 nationally, but then we also have our accredited installers as well who've been on our installation course too. So I think that's near the top of my head, sort of knocking on the door of, I want to say, about 480 businesses and nearly 6,000 engineers. That is available.
If you've got any questions about heat pumps, then you need to join the Renewable Heating Hub forums. You can connect with other homeowners, share experiences, and get advice on heat pumps and renewables. Sign up today and be a part of the conversation. Link in the description. We were really surprised that a heat pump had to be maintained when we put ours in 7 years ago. Nobody had actually told us that it actually required that annual maintenance. And we were equally surprised when we saw the price of the actual service itself, and then equally so by kind of the level of that actual service. So from your perspective, do you think that there should be more education done on that? And should there be more transparency from the installers, from the servicing installer side, when they actually go ahead of that visit to a homeowner, to basically be more transparent as to what they can expect?
I think from an installer's point of view, that's fine. From a proper installer, as the others here clearly are. But when it's installed often under these grants, it's fitted by a number of people. I mean, there was one a few weeks ago. They said, I don't know who it was fitted in by, is what they told us. It was a year old Samsung unit. They said that people come over from Ireland, some come down from Glasgow, and there were some people from the north east, Newcastle way. And there was about 10 of them. They just made a mess, but they got the job done in a day and a bit, a full install. And she doesn't know who it was who did it. She just knows it was done under a grant scheme. Someone from a call centre just calling up, trying to get people to have these things installed, or you can get a big grant for it and it's only going to cost you this. From that point of view, they'll never know anything about servicing, repairs, or who to go to. So that will always be a problem. But if it's been installed by a proper installer, shall we say, then they should explain how it works and what needs to be done going forwards, such as it will need an annual service of some description. It will need an annual check. I know some people say, oh, it doesn't really need anything doing to it. I've been told that many times. I was told it didn't need anything doing to it. It's maintenance free. Well, maybe it is to a point, but you'll have a problem and you'll find it'll cost you more to run and you may not be covered under warranty. It needs an annual check, like any mechanical item like that, like any car. You may not need much doing to it, but it does need checking. If it's installed properly, you'll be told properly what you need to do going forward and roughly how much it's likely to cost you every year. And it will cost you more than having your gas combi boiler serviced if it's done properly.
Tom, I was a bit surprised when our installers told us that the actual service was connected to the warranty for that heat pump. The thing that I'm always a little bit confused about is because, as all the guys have already alluded to on this actual call, is that you've got the heat pump unit, the actual unit outside that's actually doing the job. And then you've got the whole secondary side, which is basically, there might be a buffer tank in the way, all the heat emitters, that whole kind of heating circuit side of things. What I don't understand is that if somebody is servicing that and something goes wrong with the circuit side and that ultimately goes and actually breaks or does something that it shouldn't do on the actual heat pump unit, I still don't fully understand why there is such a strong connection between the servicing and the warranty for heat pump units.
It is a difficult one because theoretically the warranty is the unit pretty much up to the cupboard, and then from there on there out, like I said, because you've got a number of different manufactured. So yes, you may have a Panasonic cylinder, or you may have a third party cylinder. You may have Panasonic thermostats. You may have third party thermostats. I think that's more of an industry-wide question of why that is, but that's sort of almost across the board. Our warranty is on condition that the unit is serviced annually. On the flip side of that, if we had a unit that had a 7-year warranty and we got to that 7th year and no one had looked at it in 7 years and it was atrocious, then it's then where does it stop? So it's almost making sure that we're keeping that warranty going, but it's also having that bit of love throughout. And like Simon again mentioned, that preventative maintenance going through there, and again doing those sort of generic checks.
The one thing that I've taken from everything that Michael, Nigel, and yourself have said is that you guys are trying to diagnose issues. And the nice thing that heat pumps do is they are quite technical and they lend themselves really nicely to being able to feed that information back to you via the internet, via cloud services, etc. Do you think that servicing will start to become more of a online activity versus necessarily kind of being boots on the ground?
I think what you'll start to see is the beginning of it being more cost effective because half of it can be done. You can't, online AI can't touch things mechanically, but I think everything else, forward diagnostic, predictive repairs, etc. I think is coming. I'm hoping it's coming within my working period because I'm excited about it. And I think your Mitsubishi or your Panasonic will talk to you. I literally think they'll program the thing to say, "Hello, I'm feeling poorly today. How about you check my flow?" No, I think we're even going to humanize AI. So I'm looking forward to all that. It will reduce the cost for sure because we'll be able to half diagnose, or maybe we'll offer like a halfway through the year check for a tenner. That's coming, and then you'll have this whole silver, gold. We're looking at it all the time, and I just still haven't done it. But bronze, silver, gold. Bronze, you're covering your warranty. Panasonic want me to physically clean the heat exchanger and fill out a form saying, I've checked everything that your unit is in good shape. You're happy. Who cares about the plumbing pipe work? That will go wrong in 10 years. The AI will be able to keep an eye on that. I think I've said in another episode, we're going to have smart stats or smart sensors on radiators and underfloor heating. There's no reason now why you can't have a lot more information. It just costs money. And I know all the manufacturers are R&D into death every possible. There's a race to the top, that's for sure. And I'm sure Tom will have some secrets going on in the R&D workshop. It's going to come, and I think it can't come quick enough. And I think we've got to stop treating like air source heat pumps were invented 2 years ago, because they weren't. They were invented 50 years ago. It's just a thing that the government's adopted. People are recognizing, and I think you're helping push out. Panasonic are doing it a bit. Mitsubishi, Daikin, all of the big brands. I can't name them all. There's hundreds of them now. I can't go on my emails or internet now without being told, do I want an Aera unit or a Panasonic? It's like, wow, it's shopping paradise. 5 years ago, I knew 4 or 5 people that did. I knew Panasonic did, actually, because we do some Panasonic air conditioning. So, and then your rep would come around. Now I'm being advertised to death. If you don't mind, I want to just flip back quickly. I think what we were discussing 10 minutes ago, I'd like to separate the quality of service to what a preventative maintenance is. People are people, companies are companies. People will cut corners. I am a champion of not cutting corners, to the point where my staff hate me. If I find someone cutting a corner in the office just by parking, it just makes me cross. I pay you enough money and give you enough time to do it properly. So don't say you forgot to take your photographs. I make them go back 20 miles in their van, knock on the door and say, I am sorry. Part of my job was to take all the pictures. I've forgotten. They don't forget again. It's driving quality.
Nigel, how about you? Are you excited about the transition to more kind of cloud-based things that you can monitor things, and then it's just a matter of going through and just doing, checking the heat exchanger and some of the more physical elements?
Nothing will replace the expertise of boots on the ground. The problem that we're at the moment is that, with all due respect to Tom, not picking on him, he just happens to be the one on the podcast, manufacturers, like with decent service engineers, they are struggling to keep track of the number of heat pumps going in. And I think the manufacturers are struggling to keep up with good technical resources for the number of units that they're trying to put in.
How about you, Michael? Are you excited?
I wouldn't say excited, no. What my experience with AI is, it works to a point, very basic. It's everywhere, AI. It's very basic. Sometimes it works. Mostly, I find it doesn't. I do think it's the way to go, and it will help with certain things for monitoring, to see how things are performing, and if there's any anomalies there happening, and it can alert you to that. It will be a way to monitor something, and it's good if it sends the engineer or the install company, say, a monthly update for a customer of what's going on, and if there's anything that needs flagging up, and you can see what might be happening, and do we need to get some sort of maintenance check done sooner, or that it all looks okay. There's a couple of manufacturers working on that. I don't know about Panasonic. Maybe you are, probably behind the scenes, but I know Mitsubishi are, and there's some that already do that. But nothing will stop a physical install, a physical check, our human eyes looking at something, because AI cannot see what the human could see. So it will never see if there's a leak developing, or if the heat exchange is dirty. It's got to be checked by a professional to see what's going on.
Tom, I don't think we necessarily need to go down the AI route, but I do think that there's a lot that actually can simplify the kind of maintenance process of heat pumps by just monitoring the data, as Michael said. So as a very simple example, if your heat pump is monitoring the flow rate through your system and it's running at 30 liters per minute, and it starts to slow down over time, that heat pump should be intelligent enough to be able to diagnose that and say, look, the flow rate's slowing down. There could potentially be a blockage in that filter. Either ping the homeowner if they know how to do it, or, ping Nigel, Michael, or Simon to say, your flow rate's slowing down. You're going to get a flow error. Should we come out and actually do it? It's almost that preventative side of things. Do you think that should be the way that all control panels and heat pumps start to move in that direction, without kind of going crazy AI, trying to, calculate and predict things? Basic monitoring.
I think so. I mean, the data's there. If we allude back to sort of the smart cloud, that the heat pump can keep 7 days. It is 7 days of data, and there's something like 70 plus different parameters down to the frequency of the compressor. We can see when it's going on and when it's going off. If it's reaching temperature and cycling off at the right times, we can see a load of data. It is there. I think your question is, do we get to a point where it automatically just sort of corrects itself and carries on? like I said, the information's there. It's just getting it to do that.
You said something quite interesting there, and I'm a bit surprised. Why are you only storing 7 days of data? Surely that historical data gives you an amazing picture. If you've got a heat pump that's been storing data for 5 years, you can see from year 1 to year 5, if it's deteriorating over time, you can start to identify faults. I'm a bit surprised that it's just 7 days.
On the actual programmer itself, there is information on there that does go back a year, because obviously then we can look at the COP over sort of, I think it's a day, a month, and a year period. So I'm sort of talking specifically smart cloud. I think that's probably just the storage element of it. Without going too depth, I may be not quite answering the question correctly there. There is information sort of, if you go into our program, you can look at certain settings, you can see the efficiencies, like I said, over a prolonged period of time and things like that.
So, Nigel, you weren't jumping up and down when we started this subject. Would you be a little bit more excited if you were to start getting notifications to say System X is beginning to show an issue with that might potentially be Y? That then allows you to go and have a look at that system, does it not?
Yeah, totally. I did have the situation a couple of months back where I had a notification from the MillCloud server, and I phoned the customer up and I said, I think you've got a problem with your heat pump. And she goes, have I? Oh, just popped your controller. Oh, yeah, it's flashing.
Simon, we have spoken about this kind of several times on the podcast already, but Havenwise kind of does a lot of the kind of things that we've just discussed now. It's optimizing your system, but it's also kind of semi-detecting potential problems with that. You've had quite a bit of experience with that. Do you think that should kind of be the model going forward for everyone?
I don't know for everyone. I mean, I think it's more of an installer. They're selling it as an end user product because it obviously does the smart tracking tariffs, better compensation control on the fact that it's reading weather stations, etc., and other information rather than just a sensor on the back of the unit. I do agree with that. But I like it as an installer's platform because we get a little bit of back access, we get a little bit of information, and we get support from Havenwise before we have to do anything with it from a controls point of view. They've dealt with it. Or I'm sure if it ever occurs and it's not anything to do with Havenwise, they'll give us a little tinkle and say, oh, you need to pop out, there's something's wrong with the FTC 7. That'll be just because someone else touched it, like the homeowner, and they've gone, oh, what does this button do? And managed to change. So it's not that easy to change the parameters, but sometimes they manage to do it. There's a very strong case, and I think them companies will be mainstream, or they will be integrated, or manufacturers will come up with something similar and build it in, or they'll be absorbed into that, or there'll be partnerships. I like the couple I've got in. I've got 2 or 3 more to do, and we're going to spend all this year. I want to compare 10, and I want real live feedback. I think the first customer that we did, I asked them recently, and they went, the what? I said, the Havenwise app that we put. Oh, was that guy to cut? And yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it just turns on and it turns. And do you know what? That is the best thing. There's not any numbers, no flashes, no codes, no everything. It turns on, it turns off, it heats the water. That's all they care about. This is what we're trying to promote, which we've said several times before. And you're a really good example, Mars, with the stories of your installation years ago. If Havenwise or other brands similar had existed then and you'd had it, do you think that would have been easier for you because you could track some tariffs? You could have been told there's no flow rate, because I think Havenwise can even work out when it's not heating the house properly, and it would have been resolved in the first, before they'd left the install. I can get told, sorry, this is not working quite right. You've got a 9 kilowatt or an 8 kilowatt unit, and we don't see that it's heating the property quick enough. Is something wrong? When I was speaking with Henry when we was doing the hall, he said all the stats have overheated because the hall was so insulated with 700 mils worth of insulation in the walls, because that's how you build buildings now. It's phenomenally thick. They can't get rid of the heat. And I said, we're actually going to commission it properly in like December because it's so hot in there since May that we can't even do it properly. Just all the stats on Havenwise says overheated. So that's all it says. It heats the water really nice though, and gives me some diagnostics. So yeah, I think there is a future. I just don't know which one will be dominant. I just think that will be one version.
If you've got any questions about heat pumps, then you need to join the Renewable Heating Hub forums. You can connect with other homeowners, share experiences, and get advice on heat pumps and renewables. Sign up today and be a part of the conversation. Link in the description. So that's a wrap for today's episode of the Homeowners Q&A Podcast. A big thank you to my guests, Tom, Nigel, Michael, and Simon, for their insights and expertise on the future of heat pump servicing and maintenance. And of course, a special thank you to our sponsor Panasonic for making this conversation possible. And if you haven't already, pre-order your copy of The Ultimate Guide to Heat Pumps, our new book that's packed with expert advice and everything you need to make informed, confident decisions about your heat pump journey. Link in the description. I hope that you have found this episode useful and interesting. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this, don't forget to subscribe, share the podcast, and join us on Renewable Heating Hub for more resources and discussions. As always, stay warm, stay green, stay tuned. Goodbye.